Welcome back. My name is Matt Reiners, and I'm the co-founder of Eversound, a company dedicated to improving quality of life for older adults by giving them the gift of hearing. Today, I'm joined by my friend Rachelle Blough. Rachelle is the owner of Rachelle Blough LTD Consulting. She is a rec therapist and certified Alzheimer's disease and dementia trainer. I've gotten to know Rachelle over the past couple of years and find her vision and compassion are what needed when it comes to improving residents' quality of life. She also has the best frames in the game. So thanks for joining me today, Rachelle.
Thank you. You're the older I've gotten, the funkier the frames. Thank you for the shout out.
Hey, I'm the same way with my shoes, so it's all good. You gotta
That's
stand out
right.
some way, show the personality in some way.
That's right.
So, Rachelle, can you share a little bit of your background and how you got into senior living?
Sure. Well, I think when you grow up in sort of going to volunteer with the church, we were in no buildings often, even growing up. And so I'm glad and catch that bug early. I just knew I wanted to do something helping people. So really camps, working with people with disabilities. Thought I wanted to be a teacher, Matt, and I was paying for my own college. Couldn't pass my classes in order. So then I moved over to recreation therapy. So that's fun to even find that there was a major like that, because then it put me with a bunch of like-minded, little more outdoorsy, really cool major. I built a camp was one of my final projects. So it was really enjoyable to find that. And I really don't think I realized what that meant as far as like being an activity director. I moved up to Columbus, Ohio, and worked in nursing home setting and kind of a typical activity director job. And if you probably the late 90s, sort of the social reform, I feel like I say in the assisted living world, where you were starting to take a chance on really non-clinical people sometimes to oversee things. So I went into some of these more operation memory care jobs in assisted living and I tried to do marketing and sales, but they kicked me out because I did make my phone calls, but it was a fun year. And then I mostly stayed in operation jobs, regional and corporate national capacities at, both assisted living, senior living, and the skilled world. So mostly now teaching and consulting in the Chicagoland area. So that's been my journey, and it's nice to love what you do.
Hey, it's super important to love what you do, right? And, having an impact and improving that quality of life, which I know we're going to talk about here a little bit today. Because, I think the general consensus, right, when some communities will say that driving census is the entire community's goal. And not that I don't disagree with that, but I would make the additional case that it's also the entire community's responsibility to focus on quality of life. And I'm curious, what are some practical ways to get staff engaged and focused on the quality of life in their community?
Yeah, right? Isn't that a secret sauce? We could sell this, but you can say it all day. It's a matter of being able to cook the recipe. I mean, coming now 28 years looking back, one of the coolest things I got to do, Matt, was a boss who I really love said, I want to run, we were at an operator that had like 300 buildings, and I was more of a region. So we probably had 100 in our region. She said, I'm going to run every report we can. Census, family satisfaction, staff satisfaction, any metric there was. And they're the secret sauce. Even this company who, we get to a point where things sort of the same. And I got to spend time with the best of these memory directors and light and shoot directors. And what is that secret sauce? And they're just always going the extra mile. And so I always said it's like free business school to experience that. So little extras where the culture of the team, they would have a couple fun, really practical examples that would come out of something like that study. They had a conversation starter of the day in the dining room. So they really cute in the center of each table. Then they put a, prompter in the back. Sometimes it's not natural for some, younger high school servers. Today's question, ask anybody who gives you a fun answer, throw it on this dry erase board. These little moments matter. Now, result, you could probably do it through your phone with all your ways to, communicate with staff. But the old days, Matt, we had popsicle sticks, and each popsicle stick had like 300 conversation prompters. And every morning at stand up, we would pick some conversation partners for each department. So look at all those little touch points of getting, dining, housekeeping, every department, just these natural, I wanted them to catch the natural bug, the just little moments and not this big hoopla drop mopping floors and come karaoke. So those were some really neat things. And then I would also mention something that was fun is we would try to push that behavior in the break room, right? You can where everybody's hanging out. So we would do a focus 3. And as an interdisciplinary team, we kind of got together, talked and really agreed, which was neat to get everybody's perspective because I felt like we were bartering. Who are the 3 residents in assisted living that today we are worried the most about for the month? Who are the 3 in memory care that we worry the most about? And kind of more from a quality of life, right? Just talking out. It was funny, Matt, because, we're all in stand up talking about it. And they're like, Lily, are you kidding? You guys, you must not be here on second shift. She thinks she works here. She's sitting at the office telling dirty jokes. She's, walking around the clipboard and thinks she works here, but, she might be sleeping the entire other shift. So anyway, that was really a fun process to get to consensus. And then once we took those 3 people in the break room, we get the best looking picture we could of them looking sharp. We'd put 25 ways to delight that person. Here are some reminiscing prompters about their life story. And the coolest part was a log. Anybody from any department who did any of that, throw your name in here on this old school log on the dry erase. And then they could go in raffles for prizes. And, you're kind of pushing those behaviors and interactions, to everybody.
Yeah, I love that. It's like almost something you want to happen organically and you're just, kind of incentivizing it or at least bringing it front and center, right? And like saying that's kind of the expectation and what you want to happen. Which I love. I think you would call them what, naturals?
Well, I call them already happenings.
Already happenings. Okay.
And what you said there too, if I could get real technical, but it's more fun to be fuzzy. It has to start at the interview, right? You've got of the leadership at that interview who's setting that tone, giving the example of their philosophy. And hey, Rachelle, I'm rocking with Rachelle on Mondays, and every department head here. That was very much a culture at Sunrise. I'm sure you've had some experiences with them. And I grew up for over 11 years there professionally. And that was very much the culture. From the leadership, every person was supposed to at least have one thing on the calendar. And I'm glad I grew up with that professionally, kind of setting that culture because it's not everywhere.
It's definitely not. I find it very unique and, I think a lot of people talk the talk, but very few actually walk the walk when it comes to culture. And I'm curious because I know you've seen it, whether in your professional life or of course in your professional life, whether it's in consulting or actually working in the communities and being a regional, but like, what do you notice in those communities where all staff are prioritizing resident quality of life?
Well, I mean, okay, let's go with the cliche stuff first. What is it? Always one of my favorite bosses said, teams that play together stay together. It's kind of true, right? If you love where you go and you feel like you're behind the why, and for some people, maybe it's spiritual and maybe something. And I really think, Matt, all of us digging our stories, it made us want to go help another. Something in our story made it happen. So getting in there and getting all the staff connected to that why and the morale. We really had some fun experiences. We did new hire homework where no matter what department we worked in, you got paired to 2 or 3 residents that week to go get to know them, where they work, go look in the room, almost like a scavenger hunt, Matt. Go see, tell us where Annabelle studied in college. Tell me where her family always vacationed. But when you get that, I think it's, we're not selling bricks and mortar and real estate. We are, if you can get the staff to feel those relationships, I think I have a weird little, my isms, they're silly, very non-technical for my CEO would like, Rachelle, can you quantify that? I always said there's buildings that hug you and there's buildings that spit you out. Buildings that spit you out. But I have that little kind of hippie feeling where you walk in and you just sort of feel it.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you feel it, and I dig around and I'm like, what's going on in here? What's different with you guys? They're like, well, yeah, we're on the leadership committee and we have lunch with our AD once a month and we're working on a book club. She wants us to be better people because if we're better people, then we're better employees. And I'm like, Christmas, right? You, those intangible little extras where I think you create almost a little family. We spend more time at work than we do with our own family sometimes.
I know. I know it's so true, and I definitely have experienced those communities when I've gone and visited, and you can almost like catch the vibe as soon as you walk in, whether if people are super guarded and not friendly and not forthcoming versus those that walk in, you're like, wow, it feels like a second home almost, and yeah, it's super powerful. Um,
Yeah.
and I know you've shared a couple of examples of what you've seen done, but I'm just wondering if you can share any more success stories or any other examples of organizations that have successfully implemented practical ways to help improve that quality of life for residents.
Yeah. Well, I think that's my favorite thing to collect. And I'm a little bit of a technical pap rat. And now, I really still have the old manila folders, but, now you can just virtually keep stuff. Having the great experiences to be around North America mostly. I also do one of my more rewarding roles for me personally right now. I very part time. I'm the vice president of corporate training with some colleagues of mine. We teach the teachers at the Council for Dementia Practitioners. So I get to kind of hear a sprinkle around the United States of what people are doing. And I'm like, yeah, that is just brilliant. So I love that. I hate to say that the one little thing from COVID smashed us all together, in a world maybe in the past we wouldn't have been online together. So glad for all the little secret things that picked up. In my heart, you can make good buildings and have good offerings, but knowing what we know now, Matt, and you got some years before me, but it's like personal too in my own life, our family, and just in general, what we know about brain health and socialization. And it's made such a case for what I do, recreation and operations. And I know, Matt, you're living it. You're out in buildings a lot. Just a couple of mind blowing things we have to think about when we aren't getting sleep. If I'm sure you know this, when I'm preaching to the choir, if people have hearing issues, there's not addressed, right? You could probably tell me the step before I tell you 61% increased risk of getting Alzheimer's and dementia. So while a building can have the most amazing program in the whole world and these great offerings, but you and I know you got someone in the back just sitting there, smiling and nodding because they're embarrassed. So I love, we got the little shout out for you because everybody loves Matt. But, just having your tool belt, and I've seen some old school, they're little amplifiers for some of the lower cost buildings, all the way to your ever sound equipment that was a game changer. But again, I think it is to me the power of the people. Matt, if I was at a conference where two times where we presented on this topic. There were more employees than there were actual people living in the building. By the time I took all the PRNs and the part times and the weekends and housekeeping, dining, blah, 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 blah. Well, it was, a small 60-person assisted living. And in the end, there was 50 some staff. So they paired every month, you would get paired to a new resident. So in a sense, it kind of made me think of like adoptive grandparent or secret Santa or but every single month and tethering one employee to one senior, that's a game changer. And so was really a best practice. We were able to demonstrate in that building some higher outcomes with satisfaction, likelihood to recommend. It just makes sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things that almost feels like a no-brainer at times. And like if you're wanting to do that and do that, of course you'll see the outcomes. But one of the things I've seen people struggle with, especially in this industry, not everybody, of course, but it's like how do we quantify what that improved quality of life looks like? Where you kind of mentioned the satisfaction scores and likely to recommend. I'm just curious how else you've seen organizations measure the success of their efforts to improve quality of life for residents.
Yeah, right. I like to do my really non-official approach. So we'll go non-official so we'll go squishy to legit. So the squishy, which feels silly, but was how, Matt, when I took a function, we had to start from nothing and try to make change. Where do you even start? And so it was a little bit what I described about the team discussing, but we used old school highlighters. And we had green was good, yellow was keep an eye on them, and pink was people, as I said earlier, kind of that focused resident that for some reason the department team from the different specializations were like, these are people, honestly, we're kind of selling real estate to. We're keeping them clean, safe, and dry, but in our heart. And we really describe an amazing day for them. So we used that process and really as a corporate resource supporting a million, not million, whatever at the time it was 50 buildings. They could tell me in their mind it felt quantifiable. So I'm an enrichment or a memory care director. Oh my gosh, we have 31 pinks, gosh, out of 80 people. But then all of a sudden we would take 3 at a time and then it kept getting smaller and smaller. So on the inside, I feel like that's a neat way that Matt, it really helped them to think about, okay, so you picked the 3 pinkest people. That's who we were calling to do a deeper dive on the life story. That might be the first person we're giving them their amplifier or ever sound because they can't hear. That's the first people we're making a busy kit for, so I've seen some nice success with that. I do love all the technology stuff out there now though too. Some of the NPS scores.
Hmm.
I don't know if you like specific technology names because I'm not affiliated with any of them, but I know, isn't there a couple where the family real time gets like, do you know what I'm talking about with the NPS score where they're sending out how you feeling about us in real time? The ED's always hearing how they're doing.
Yeah, the net promoter score, I find that's kind of like a standard, especially in tech companies, to kind of get a gauge of how you're doing. And really, it's the net promoter score is like on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us? And, if it's an 8 to a 10, that's usually really good. Anything below that, there's definitely some room for improvement for sure.
It just makes too much sense to me from an ED to a department leader, but particularly enrichment people, no pressure. We're supposed to be the heartbeat of the house, keeping everyone happy all the time. But again, love it, but it can feel a lot of pressure. I think I'm surprised as well, Matt, companies are like, when I ask the question, they say, oh, well, we already do a satisfaction survey. I said, well, no, no, no. I'm talking like at least 4 times a year, a deep dive to your current seniors who live there and are capable of responding to the families, to the staff. How do you feel the life enrichment offerings are doing? And, what score again? And what would you like to see change? What would you like to see added? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? Right? 4 times a year. And then I said to some of the life enrichment people I was helping kind of build from the ground up, I said, put it right next to the calendar. We heard you. Last month, this was our score. You told me you wanted more of this. And wow, this quarter when we scored, we went from 7.5 to 8.6 and we added 19 outings. So you're really showing your people we're listening. We're listening and right? I'm not some cool, I'm not an old school, you could use Survey Monkey and some of those different technologies where it's easier to just send a link. But I have some old school surveys that if anybody needs them, I'd be happy to share. Because you can't change what you don't know.
Exactly. And if you're not measuring, and you're not getting results on what it is, if you're not measuring, you can't change either. And you need to create that feedback loop of what's working, what's not working. And for those of what's not working, you can't, put egos aside and try and operate from a place to maximize what you want to do. Right. And, you can attack ideas, but you can't attack people is something I believe in too. And, really taking that feedback seriously and changing for the better.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. That's why
Yeah,
we're on.
exactly. And then my last question here for you, Rachelle, and arguably my favorite, but if you could give senior living providers just 3 guiding principles as we think about and move through the next 12 months, what would you say?
If it were me and I got the chance, I'm always a little scared to be in charge and be responsible because that's what keeps me from not going back and trying to be an ED at a building because I'd love to see the fruits of my labor, Matt. I think it starts with what I said earlier about that amazing. I've had 2 or 3 amazing bosses, like to this day. We're in touch. They were at my wedding, and they all kind of did the same thing. You help create good people, and then when you create good people, you're going to get good employees because you care about them. So to me, a guiding principle is to try to really make a tangible effort. The fact that we did these book clubs, Matt, and the one book club I found super transformative. I swear, and have no kickbacks. Got to be careful in Chicago. Nope, no bribery kickbacks over here.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bosses had us working monthly on Martin Seligman's stuff.
Yeah.
It's the positive psychology, and there were a lot of
My wife has her master's in positive psych, so I'm very familiar with them. Yeah.
so to me, caring about and developing your people and letting them see where they're at in their own optimism and their own well-being and satisfaction. And we were working as a team to improve as people. I thought that's huge. I also, earlier we talked about why aren't we using the power of the people and matching every single paid employee to some senior in our building? Why aren't we doing that? To me, to me, the second guiding principle would be, making those connections natural. It's just a part of the fabric, and it never deviates. I think it's huge. And then I think, you're going to laugh at this one. I think sometimes we have to, I don't know how to say this. Let's see. Third principle. I'm going to say it like professionally and in the right jargon, but then I'll just say sometimes we're going to have to kill a couple trees still. There is an amazing place for tech, but I think don't get too far away as a guiding principle. Listen to your team when they make these little systems or tools or workarounds. Matt, those were, when I got to go to that, one company sent me to the top like 3 to 5 performing buildings in our whole portfolio. They were using low tech little assignment sheets and who's going to lead exercise, CNA 1, and who's going to pass out the Eversound headphones for sing along, CNA 2, and put it on, YouTube at 1:30. So sometimes don't get so techy, even to the point, Matt. And so the guiding principle of tech and listen to the staff for their input. They, those focus residents, we said, that kind of would get lost in the cracks and were kind of could be perceived as more challenging to work with. We made a little cheat sheet on their door in their bathroom, and we had a little purple dot that would be on the doors so that would tell the staff after they've been trained, you see a purple dot on the door, you can go and look at this resident's back of their door and see a little cheat sheet about like their favorite things, what to do when they're upset, how to talk to them. A point about killing trees there, and I don't mean seriously, so forgive me if anyone's environmental and I sound terrible. I'm not serious, but sometimes, again, staff isn't going to always go to the tab in the computer or go to the nurse's file to find the social history. Just putting it just to be really user-friendly, I think. Listening to the staff and use, systems and creative solutions they come up with can make a big difference.
Yeah. I love that. All right, Rachelle. Well, I appreciate your time and all of your passion you put into this industry. I think it's people like you that give me a lot of hope of where senior living is headed. So I appreciate your time today and hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you for letting us share ideas and chat today and in the future. It's always good to spend time with you.